It's Christmas time in the Kingdom of Kerry, and it can only mean one thing in motorsport terms. It's the 2003 Killarney Historic Stages Rally, the biggest historic rally run in these Isles. Rally HQ this year is at the Drumhall Hotel in the heart of Killarney. And all proceeds go to the Valentia Island Lifeboat Fund. This year's event, including 7 times Circuit of Ireland winner and rally legend Jimmy McRae, who at 61 recently competed in Rally GB, who finished a magnificent 17th in the Subaru. For Killarney, he brings the VK Porsche to run the classic stages for cars up to 1979. And in a rather more sedate Renault, he takes us through the famous Moll's Gap.
This is one of the greatest classic stages, I think, in the whole of the world. This is Moll's Gap, about 10 kilometres into the stage. We come up over here, this is the gap at the top. It's quite an awesome stage. We go through this rock face and it's downhill towards the finish after that. When we go back to the 80s, when I was doing the Circuit of Ireland, I won the circuit 7 times, and they always had this stage in the Killarney Sunday Run. And we used to have some good battles here with Russell Brooks and Billy Coleman and Bertie Fisher.
The famous Sunday Run starts at 7 a.m. with a 15-mile stage over Moll's Gap. McRae's determined to extend his lead. But Brooks knows the score and is equally determined to keep in touch.
Well, the last time I did this stage was in the Rally of the Lakes a few years ago, and I don't have great memories from that, because about roughly half a mile down the road there, we were coming up and the tyre came off the rim of the car and it spun and we hit the wall and retired. It's a very, very demanding stage. It's very quick in places down the bottom, and other bits it's very twisty and very bumpy. The big problem is the bumps, actually, just knowing how fast you can go over the bumps and how committed you can be to the corner, because hit the bump wrong and it can just set the car off track. And it really, I don't think it'll be so bad here, but in the circuit days when you did it at 5 o'clock in the morning, it was quite often covered in mist and fog up here, but hopefully at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning it'll be nice and clear like this.
Scrutiny on the eve of the 9-stage event took place at the fire station. 151 confirmed starters, and we spoke to previous winners Desi Nutt and John Moynihan, who were happy with McRae's presence.
Yes, Jimmy's here, and it's great to have him here. He's running in a classic car, which is a more modern vehicle altogether with a 3-litre engine, so we're not competing directly against him, unfortunately. My car's more or less unchanged from last year. It's a 2-litre short wheelbase 1960 911. It's a joy to drive, beautiful little car. The engine on a Porsche is very strong, but the transmission tends to be weak, so care and attention.
I suppose Jimmy McRae will set the pace in Carl Lake and Churchtown, stage 3 and 4. But I'd be hoping to do it in the first 2. His car is more suited to the second 2, I think. Carl's, I've no changes done to it in 3 years. Only I bought a 2.5 Middleton Diamond engine, so it's got 290 odd horsepower, and that's basically the biggest change.
Dawn over Killarney and scrutiny behind them, the competitors finally get possession of the cars at Killarney Racecourse ahead of a demanding day, which includes 9 stages with 2 runs over the infamous Moll's Gap and the sting in the tail, the final stage at Coolick, which will be run in darkness. And this is what's facing the competitors on the very first stage. This is the classic Moll's Gap, which is also stage 5. First on the road, Desi Nutt. Desi, 5 times winner of this rally, had a puncture just on the run-up to stage start and had a real rush to get the wheel changed, which was a bit unsettling, and he missed a few gears early on. It meant that Nutt was somewhat slower than in recent years over the gap, and although he was quickest historic at the end of stage 1, the lead wasn't what he'd hoped for. John Keatley was due to be next up, but unfortunately his Porsche stopped at the bridge before Ladies View. This left the British Historic champion Steve Perez next up in the VK Porsche. The first post-historic we see, one of 3 classes that run in the Killarney Historic Stages Rally, is the Escort RS of Martin Freestone from the Isle of Man, with Chris Hayes calling the notes. Giving it everything he's got on the fast dry stage at Malls Gap is the post-historic leaders John and Christy Farrell in their Escort. There were cars of all shapes and makes on this year's event. This a Triumph TR4 driven by Steve Hall and Aggie Foster, being caught by the Escort of David Stokes. Next up was the immaculate Porsche 911 of Nick Whale, who takes joint second with Martin Freestone in post-historics. And now to the first of our onboard shots. Let's contrast the styles of the leading contenders in the classic class. First, the Escort of John Moynihan.
Crest into 6 left, 100.
And 3 left, gravel.
And now McRae's Porsche.
Into care, keep right on crest and 2 left. 13, 6 left, and 5 right minus on.
This is a driver we'll see a lot more of later on. A lot more. The all-out action style of the Escort of James O'Sullivan. Well, they might have got out of Killarney easily enough, but some are having great difficulty finding their way to Kenmare. One stage down, Nutt from Gower from Perez in the Historics, while Post-Historics sees Farrell from Freestone from Whale, and in the Classics, Moynihan, O'Sullivan, O'Neill and McRae. Desi Nutt was first into service at the end of Malls Gap. He found it okay despite his early problems.
It's good this morning. They've resurfaced lots of Malls Gap, and with it being dry this morning, there's a lot of grip. So the stage is a lot quicker than I've ever seen it before. So it's good.
Bit slippy in under the trees, but other than that, it's good.
They've resurfaced a lot of the road out there in Malls Gap, so it's obviously a lot faster.
Yeah, towards the end they have, but it's got a lot of loose gravel on it, so it can catch you out as well.
Last into service were the Classics, and Jimmy McRae's Porsche crew got ready for their driver to arrive. First in the class, however, was the leader, John Moynihan in the Escort. A happy man.
Yeah, very happy with that first stage now, yeah. It is very, very fast. Because the road is lovely and dry. It is a pity that a pile of chips out at Malls Gap, so the big crowd didn't get nothing spectacular.
You were catching guys in front of you at a rate of knots.
I don't know. I must get going faster for this fella when he'll wake up, this Scotsman. They say the McRae's go well. So I go hard now and Belloc could be and see what he'll do in Carl Lake and Churchtown then. It'll be a good race anyway.
His engine will cost probably more than this Porsche, so I'm not really worried about that. It was all right, just it's different when you're flat out than doing it up there at 40 miles an hour. The old Porsche's still got a bit of a mind of its own.
And this what awaited the remaining cars and crews on stage 2 over Ballabima, which was also the location for run 6. Desi Nutt led the Historics after Malls Gap, but Desi reported some gear selection troubles in his Porsche and was 22 seconds slower than Perez over Ballabima. Perez took advantage of Nutt's troubles and took over the Historic lead in his Porsche 911. Peter Scott was his navigator in Killarney. Next up was Martin Freestone in the Escort. Here he looked smooth, third in class, still snapping at the heels of the post-historic leader. Who was John Farrell in the Escort. He won the post-historics here in 2000 and 2002. Sean Tracy took third spot in the post-historic results on the 2003 Rally of the Lakes, also based in Killarney in his BMW Alpina, but was running fifth and was being caught by Nick Whale's Porsche, who although was behind Tracy on the road, was actually nearly a minute ahead of the BMW. Martin Ward in the Manta was having major gearbox problems and was praying it would hold out until service. This is our first look at Richard Gower's Porsche. His first ever run in the car, he was second in the historics. Once again, let's ride on board with McRae as Campbell Roy calls the notes.
3 left tightens to 2. And 2 right plus. Left in. 2 left.
Up ahead, a trouble-free run from Moynihan, who was actually starting to extend his lead, while Kieran O'Neill's Cadet was now up to 5th and closing in on McRae, who was still 4th after 2 stages. McRae not too happy with either the handling or his tyre choice.
And right and 2 left. Left in. 6 left over crest. Into 6 left, left in, 2 right plus. And here, long 3 left tightens to 2.
James O'Sullivan and Rebecca Walsh in the Escort was still second after run 2, but Moynihan was fast disappearing up in front of them, while Irish supercar champion Pat Donegan showed he can switch from track racing to rallying, putting his Escort 3rd in the Classics. And this is what the stunning Killarney scenery can display, part of stages 3 and 7 at Cara Lake. Steve Perez reported that everything was still going well for him over stage 3, although he did have some clutch slippage. He did, however, lead the historics by 5 seconds. 5 seconds adrift was the Porsche of Richard Gower, despite reporting the fact that he was held up somewhat on the previous stage by a slower car. In the post-historics, Martin Freestone's Escort was losing touch with John Farrell's Escort. By the end of stage 3, he and co-driver Chris Hayes were 1 minute and 10 seconds adrift.
To right 1, don't cut. 60, green. Left 2 minus, rock, green, 150.
The Farrells continued to dominate at the head of affairs in post-historic. While Nick Whale was just 9 seconds behind Freestone. Moynihan's Escort was powering ahead, and at the end of stage 3 had opened up a 30-second gap between himself and the rest of the Classic class. McRae continued his pursuit of the top 3 at Cara Lake.
Left and 3 right. And 3 right. And 6 left. 30. 5 left and 5 right minus. And 4 left minus and long 4 right. Into 4 left. Into 6 right. 30. 4 right plus. Keep straight 150.
Pat Donegan, one of 3 brothers involved in racing in Ireland, continued in 3rd, but now just 2 seconds ahead of McRae. On to stage 4 of Brookhill, a stage that most of the drivers drove over at a very sedate pace indeed. One of only 2 cars through the stage at speed was historic leader Steve Perez. No problem for the English driver at the head of affairs. However, no such luck for the Escort of Hayes and Freestone.
Big fresh jump, green. Jumped it, green. 1. Oh, now. Oh.
Thankfully, the pair were okay after that momentous crash. Hayes suffered bruised ribs. The stage was then cancelled, and the rest of the cars drove through to service. Perez now leading historic after stage 4, Gower in 2nd, Nutt down to 3rd. In post-historic, the Farrells still lead from Nick Whale, Connolly's up to 3rd. While in the Classics, Moynihan way out in front ahead of O'Sullivan, Donegan and McRae.
Not everything's just going our way at the moment. We're having problems with 3rd gear. Not sure whether it's gear selection problem or a clutch problem, but we'll look at it in service. And a long way to go yet, so we haven't given up.
I'm really surprised to be leading. I never expected to beat Desi Nutt on anywhere in Ireland, but he's still really, really close, nip and tuck. But I think Richard Gower's going to be the big danger today. He's flying.
You're just 5 seconds off the lead in your particular section, and things pretty fast out there. Most of the drivers are saying it's pretty quick and some places a bit slick.
Yeah, we're getting good traction. We got held up a little bit coming down the mountain on stage 2, and no, I'm finding the car and the traction are fine.
So you know what position you're in now, you can attack for the remaining stages?
I hope so. Yeah, we definitely plan to do that.
So we're going to do a bit of alteration to the front and put a higher profile tyre on it to try and get it off the bumps. The car's bottoming out in the sump garden, it's just lifting the car, so we'll try something different here. See if we can increase our time.
There's a lot of big names. We've got Jimmy McRae in front of us up the gap this morning, and it's nice to see him just that little step behind us on the leaderboard. If we can keep it that way for the rest of the day, we're going to enjoy it.
3 stages down, 1 cancelled. It was back to where the car started from. The run from Killarney to Kenmare over Mall's Gap for the second time. On the second visit to the gap, Nutt's Porsche was again fastest of the historics. His problems were on stage 2 and 3 with gearbox and clutch problems, which gave the lead to Steve Perez in the Porsche. Perez was 13 seconds slower than Nutt the first time over Mall's Gap. This time around there was only 1 second between the pair. John Farrell's lead was extended to 13 seconds by the end of stage 5 in the post-historics. Ray Cunningham was classified 6th at the end of stage 5 in the Mini, but there was some confusion regarding his time the first time over the gap. Nick Wales' Porsche was still second to Farrell. He had a commanding gap between himself and the chasing pack, however. Perez, Gower and Nutt started 1, 2, 3 on the historics before stage 5, but Mervyn Johnson wants to move into a podium place at the end of the stage in the Mini Cooper S. Gareth and Joe Connolly came into the reckoning in post-historics. Their escort was now up to 3rd. And this was the last time we'd see the Porsche of Richard Gower in quite this condition. There was seemingly little that the rest of the classic car drivers could do about John Moynihan's escort. The Mill Street Ace ended stage 5 nearly 2 minutes ahead. Moynihan was the class of the pack, helped in no small way by the Milton Diamond engine in the escort, aided by a 6-speed sequential gearbox. Up ahead of Moynihan to the left-hand side of your screen, the demise of the Porsche of Richard Gower. Kieran O'Neill and co-driver Dermot Falvey were continuing to show good form in their Open Cadet, 5th in the Classics. McRae again struggled on Mall's Gap, losing time to 3rd place Pat Donegan, the gap back out to 11 seconds. McRae's Porsche bottoms out on many of the bumps on the gap, causing the Scot to lose precious time. James O'Sullivan's tail-happy escort continued on its way, 2nd in the Classics, but still some way adrift of leader Moynihan. While Donegan remained in 3rd, 19 seconds behind O'Sullivan's similar machine. Time to leave the gap as the last car goes through. And on to stage 6 as we go back to Ballabema and a look at the MG of Philip Wiley, 5th in the historics. Not far behind, 4th place Adrian Kermode in his Porsche. In the post-historics, Sean Tracy's BMW was still 4th. He was having a real battle with the Mini of Mike Doody and Keith Moriarty. Kieran O'Neill's Opel reported some clutch slippage and a misfire, and he's now 6th in the Classics. The escort of Kevin O'Donoghue has an interesting passenger in this window. On to stage 7, and this was the aftermath of a crash suffered by James O'Sullivan's escort, struggling to make it to service. Steve Perez led Desi Nutt at the end of stage 7 in the standings in the historics. In the post-historics, the Farrell still led from Nick Wales' Porsche. While with the demise of James Sullivan and Pat Donegan, Moynihan now led Jimmy McRae. And now back to the problems of James O'Sullivan.
How much spin, John? Will she polish out? It's dry, believe it or not, it's actually driving perfectly, but it's just too cold. We got a puncture on Ballabema, and we had to head on to Carroll Lake with the front tyre on the back. and we paid the price for it. We took a gamble and didn't pay off.
And this, from the view of a fan cam, is exactly what happened.
You never think it'll happen. All I can say is that we had a very good roll cage inside in the car. I mean, you know, safety first, there's no doubt about it.
And 5 left, and caution, 1 left tightens at the first. 3 left, don't cut, 40! You okay? Yeah.
What was going through your mind when you realised that the car was going over?
I think I kept on calling the notes in the hope that she would land on all 4 tyres and that we'd be off again, but it just wasn't going to happen for us today, unfortunately.
2 stages to go, it's starting to get a little bit dark now, so and the last stage, of course, will be driven in darkness.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't mind that really. We've got a good light pod for this car, so that might make a bit of difference. I'll see.
Fun out there so far. You've done Moll's Gap second time around as well.
Yeah, we were 6 seconds quicker there, and I thought the way the car felt, I thought we'd have been much quicker, but we were only 6 quicker than we were this morning. But a lot of the other lads were slower, so we obviously speeded up.
In 4th place overall, is that where you think perhaps you'll finish?
No, I want to finish first.
We're very comfortable now. I've slackened off now from Moll's Gap and just driving as clean as I can. Just watching the rocks on the side of the road that I don't hit one of them. So we've 2 left now. So I'm hope for the best now.
Stage 7 saw the end of both O'Sullivan's and Dunigan's escorts at elevating McRae to 2nd in the Classics. There was little change on stage 8 in all 3 classes before the night fell and the start of the stage was delayed to ensure that all cars ran in darkness. Steve Perez was to hold on to his historic lead. It was not to be for Desi Nutt. 5-time winning sequence has come to an end. While in the Classics, nothing was going to stop John Moynihan. We had a fantastic day's racing in Killarney, and so too did Steve Perez. The winner of the Historics, Desi Nutt, had to be content with 2nd place. Nick Whale won the Post-Historics on the last stage when John Farrell lost a cylinder. While in the Classics, Jimmy McRae expired on the final stage as well. John Moynihan was the easy winner.
We've had a good turnout of competitors, and it's nice to see the field of historics and post-historics get bigger every year. We have great classic competitors as well, and some local lads, and it's nice to see a good assortment of competitors from both Europe and Ireland competing against each other, so very good.
Steve, well done to the victor of the spoils, the bottle of champagne. You'll open that now any second. Congratulations. How did you find the whole day for yourself?
It's been absolutely fabulous. It's been really well organised, and I've got to say great credit to Tim and his team and all the people in Killarney who've put on a fantastic rally. This is the best rally I've done this year, and I've won the championship, the British Championship this year, and it is the best and most exciting and most fun rally, and everyone's so friendly. I'm just so pleased to be here.
Well, Nick, you were saying that perhaps time penalties out in the roads have been imposed upon you. Maybe the difference at the end of this rally, and so it proved.
Well, no, actually, if you take all the road penalties away, unfortunately for John Farrell, he had an engine drop onto 3 cylinders on the last stage. Despite that, we would have actually got there. It's fantastic. It's the first time I've been. I'll certainly be back. It's the most challenging tarmac rally. I thought the Manx was supposed to be the most challenging tarmac rally, but this is definitely the most challenging.
Well done, John. Welcome to the victory ramp. It's a tremendous day for you all round.
It was a great day, great steady pace all day, and a very well organised event. No delays to start the stages or anything, and a great navigator with Paul Nagel with me. I rang Paul a week ago to see would he do this rally with me, so that's great. Yeah.
You really set your marker down on the first stage when you broke the record time under 10 minutes. You must have been absolutely flying.
You have people like Jimmy McRae around, you don't want to be waiting around for them.